Our unity will not falter, I promise you.
Now, the moments that matter most from across the country and here at home. A closer look at the biggest stories impacting you.
I think consumers might be breathing something akin to a sigh of relief.
A focus on the planet's safety.
Adult trees are less sensitive to climate. They have really deep roots.
Plus the positive and the inspirational.
I hope I'm doing the same thing at his age. I mean, that's what motivates me to come to the gym.
I'm Tom Hanson. Your news starts now. Tonight, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky leaves the NATO summit in Lithuania without an invitation to join NATO. Still, President Zelensky is calling the two-day summit a victory for his country and directly thanking the American people. And joining me now is Trayson Bragg. He's got a look at the summit. Hey there, Trayson.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, Zelensky's returns to his war-ravaged nation with the promise of more military and economic aid and assurances from NATO allies that his country will one day soon join their ranks. President Biden capped the two-day NATO summit in Lithuania by emphasizing the military alliance's united front in rallying around Ukraine.
We are steeled for the struggle ahead. Our unity will not falter, I promise you.
During a meeting with the country's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, President Biden made clear that Ukraine's future lies in NATO. It's just unclear when.
It's going to happen. You're all moving in the right direction. I think it's just a matter of getting by the next few months.
Assurances that Zelensky considers a success following the first ever NATO-Ukraine Council, despite earlier expressing frustration over a lack of timeline.
At the end of the summit we had, I think, this council and great success and security guarantees, as you said.
Ukraine walked away with a long-term security commitment from President Biden and allies, while the war-torn country waits for full NATO membership.
Ukraine is now closer to NATO than ever before. Allies reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance.
With Russia's war on Ukraine still underway, allies say now is not the time, since it would draw NATO countries into direct conflict. They also want Ukraine to meet certain conditions, including fighting corruption. President Biden now heads to NATO's newest member country, Finland, to meet with Nordic leaders. Sweden's prime minister will be among the leaders in attendance at the Nordic summit. This comes as Turkey's president hinted that Sweden joining NATO could still take some time, saying a final decision rests with Parliament. Tom?
A story we're following closely, Trayson, thank you. And right now, water rescues and evacuations are underway in Vermont. This says nearly 75 million Americans will face a brutal heat wave with temps into the 90s over the next week. And Ivan Rodriguez has the latest on the severe weather taking over the nation.
More than 50 million Americans will face life-threatening triple-digit temperatures this week.
This heat wave that we're experiencing right now can be fatal.
Nearly 70% of the U.S. population, from California to Florida, expected to endure sweltering temperatures at or above 90 degrees with no break in sight.
We continue to set new record highs for heat-associated deaths. Heat is a really serious public health hazard. We don't talk about it as seriously as we should all across the United States.
Meanwhile,
no way, bro.
In Vermont, rescues and evacuations are underway in Lamoille County after catastrophic floods triggered by a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall have devastated parts of the state.
We are still in an absolute crisis. We still have many rivers that are in moderate to major flood stage.
But as floodwaters recede in some places and people begin a massive cleanup effort, the threat of new floods is emerging, with another round of rain forecast to fall on already hard-hit areas Thursday and Friday.
This may not be over. With rain in the forecast and nowhere for it to go, we could see waters rise again.
We have to continue to be vigilant and mindful that more flooding is a very real possibility. This is going to be a years, if not a decade-long recovery for the state of Vermont.
Ivan Rodriguez, Now News.
Ivan, thank you. Meteorologist Michael Ottavino joins me now. So, Michael, what will we be seeing over the next week? And will there be any relief in sight for those scorching temps and severe storms?
Well, Tom, definitely no relief in sight for those hot temperatures. And we'll see the threat for more severe storms and even another flooding threat into portions of the Northeast. So let's talk about the why. Why are we seeing these very hot temperatures? We have this area of high pressure over the southwestern half of the United States. And this is going to continue. This ridge of high pressure continues to pretty much dominate the southwest, which will leave dangerous hot temperatures into the forecast the rest of this week. into the weekend, into early next week. Dallas-Fort Worth today had their hottest day of the year at 105 degrees. Wasn't that hot since last year. So notice these heat alerts into effect for this week. Heat advisories, excessive heat warnings, dangerous heat. Feels like temperatures up to 118 degrees with no relief in sight. So we have the dangerous heat. We also have the threat for severe storms kind of following the jet stream pattern for into tonight. 67 million people at risk into portions of the Midwest, Kansas, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois, the rest of Illinois, St. Louis in that mix for a level 3 of 5 risk for tonight. Damaging winds, potentially winds stronger than 75 miles per hour or greater. Again, within this shaded area. Even for tonight, we could even see some strong tornadoes, 10% chance or greater of seeing an EF2 to an EF5 tornado, again, within that shaded area. So the severe weather continues for tonight. Let's take a look at that futurecast. Notice we'll see those strong to severe storms continue across portions of the Great Lakes into tonight. And then overnight, we could see some more into portions of Illinois as well as into portions of Missouri. And then for tomorrow, we'll see the threat for some more severe storms and then the flooding possible into the Northeast.
Yeah, the severe weather just keeps coming, Michael. Thank you. And next on now, a different kind of cool down for these hot summer months.
This isn't a much better place, but it's not yet to the promised land.
The new report that shows inflation is easing and what that means for interest rates. Next. Turning now to our nation's economy and the difference 1 year makes. New data from the federal government Wednesday showed inflation continued to ease last month, but economists caution there's more work to do. And Karen Kafa breaks down the numbers from Washington.
A cool down to start the summer months.
I think consumers might be breathing something akin to a sigh of relief because the worst of inflation behind.
For the 12th consecutive month, U.S. inflation slowed in June, according to the Consumer Price Index reading released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics Wednesday. Overall, consumer prices increased 3% year over year, the government said, far from a peak of 9.1% last June when prices climbed at their fastest annual rate since November 1981.
So this isn't a much better place, but it's not yet to the promised land of where we want to be. We still see some elevated prices for things that are important.
It's good news for consumers at the grocery store, with overall food prices continuing to moderate and the index for meat, poultry, fish, and eggs falling in June. Energy prices fell. Gasoline prices are down 26% from last year. Airfares dropped too. But shelter costs remain stubbornly high, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics said that accounted for the bulk of the June increase. The overall number also good news for the Federal Reserve. The jobs report released by the Labor Department last Friday showed a strong but slowing U.S. labor market. The Fed rolled out 10 consecutive rate hikes prior to last month's meeting in an effort to tame inflation. The central bank is expected to raise rates again at the end of the month.
And let's bring in Karen Kafa now. Karen, good to see you. When the Fed meets in a couple of weeks, they'll have this inflation report plus last Friday's jobs report as key pieces of data. So what do we expect them to do about interest rates and why?
Well, the markets, Tom, really anticipate that the Fed will raise interest rates at the end of this month. Remember, they took a pause last month to step back and assess how these rate hikes, 10 of them in a row, have been impacting the overall economy. Most economists expect that maybe this will be the final rate hike, or they'll hike rates, take a pause, and hike rates one more time before the end of the year. But the message that they must be getting from this data is that their strategy is working. We saw a strong but slowing jobs report on Friday. The inflation data going in the right direction. The Fed's goal here was to make a soft landing for this U.S. economy, bringing inflation down while not throttling the economy so much that jobs were lost, and they appear to be moving in the right direction. The key, Tom, is that they don't want to take it one step too far.
And as the overall number comes down, which areas of the economy still have stubborn levels of inflation?
Yeah, apparel has been one, but shelter is the really big one. So much so that the Bureau of Labor Statistics highlighted that when they did the overall release about this number. So you're talking about rent and housing prices. They've been really stubborn here, but economists say the good news is that sometimes rents and home prices tend to lag. So it may be that these prices are coming down. We're just not seeing it in the report yet. But the housing market has been a tricky thing because the Fed obviously has raised interest rates in an effort to curb inflation. And a lot of home buyers buyers, because of that, have just stayed in their homes rather than going to renegotiate or negotiate a new mortgage. So that's made the market really tight. That in turn keeps costs up. So the good news is that this report didn't really give the Fed too many other areas to be really concerned about, so they can focus on that idea of shelter, home prices, rent prices, and think about everything else as they start to make their next decision on interest rates, Tom.
Yeah, we'll take the good news where we can get it. Karen Kafa, we appreciate your time. Thank you. All right, coming up, a star-studded milestone, the dazzling new images as we celebrate a year of stellar work. That's next. New tonight, a congressional investigation found some of the largest tax prep companies spent years sharing Americans' financial data with tech giants. The report details how TaxSlayer, H&R Block, and Tax Act gave out sensitive information to Meta and Google without consent or appropriate disclosures. That's a potential violation of federal law. According to the report, the companies are accused of sharing details about filing status, adjusted gross income, and the size of tax refunds. Meanwhile, President Biden is significantly changing the federal student loan system. The new income-driven repayment plan is called SAVE, which stands for Saving on a Valuable Education. Under Biden's new plan, borrowers could see monthly bills cut in half. There's also a forgiveness component after a decade of payments. Depending on how many people enroll, this plan could cost the government up to $361 billion over 10 years. Okay, coming up after the break, the struggle to recover.
So it's so hard to see climate change, but like you like just pull off this blue cone and you're like, boom, this little seedling is the victim of climate change.
Trees usually grow back after forest fires, but hotter fires make it harder for forests to recover. And we take a look at that data on the dot. What's fueling fires within our nation's forests?
We're definitely seeing changes already due to climate change.
An out-of-this-world milestone.
What you're seeing is a star nursery.
Plus, a tiny device making big dreams possible.
Cameron is one of maybe 10 kids in the whole world to get this kind of pacemaker.
And a World War II veteran proving age is just a number.
It works, and I recommend it for anybody that wants to live to be 100, and I will.
All week, we're exploring how climate change is leading to more extreme wildfires. One effect of warmer conditions is more dry vegetation, which becomes fuels for fires in our forests. And more fuel means hotter fires. Tonight, we go to Montana to see two forests with one struggling to recover from an extreme fire. And here's David Schechter on the dot.
We're about to walk up into some areas here that have been just incredibly, horribly burned and talk about why they're not growing back.
So this whole hillside would have been forested before the fire.
This is Kim Davis, a research ecologist with the U.S. Forest Service. She studies how forests recover or don't recover from today's fires that are burning hotter.
This fire burned in 2000.
That long ago?
Yeah, so it's been a long time.
Wow.
And we still don't see...
Not much is growing back.
Nothing's really coming back.
Why is this area not coming back?
Where we're standing right now is really far away from any living trees that survived the fire. And so there aren't seeds getting dispersed into this area.
So the trees were just so destroyed that there are no seeds around.
Exactly.
To regenerate.
Yes. And so that's the first reason.
The second, she's telling me, is climate change. They've replanted trees up here. That's what's in those little blue tubes. But in a warmer climate, this spot that gets direct sun is now hotter than it used to be 50 years ago.
Adult trees are less sensitive to climate. So they have really deep roots. They have thick bark. They can handle drier and warmer conditions. And seedlings are really tiny. And as we walk around and look in here, you'll see a lot of them are dead. They can't get to the deeper soil water.
This little seedling here would have done well before the climate was different.
It likely would have been growing, yeah. It's pretty clear when you come out in some of these areas that we're definitely seeing changes already due to climate change.
Why are we going up this way? What are we going to see?
Well, I just wanted to bring you up here to show you, what a forest looks like when it is recovering. And just to give you a taste of what my life is like in the field.
Kim's telling me this part of the forest we're walking through also caught fire, but it didn't burn as hot as the first location we went to.
The fire did burn through here. You can see there's char on those trees over there. And it killed some trees, but it left some as well. And so there's lots of trees around to provide seeds. They're also providing some shade that's making it cooler and better for seedlings growing in the understory.
So the little guys can grow up if the big guys are giving them some shade.
Yeah.
So it's like if you save this little island, this oasis, it can propagate the rest of the areas.
Yep. Yeah. Anything we can do to keep some of the mature trees on the landscape really helps the forest recover. 4, 5, 6, 7.
And we're counting the little seedlings that are now doing great. Whereas in the other location, there weren't any of them. 51.
52.
Oh, it's doing great down here.
Yeah. 53, 54, 55. Feel pretty confident that this is going to recover.
So is this hopeful for you, or this is just, it is? Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, I love seeing baby trees that are growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to come to sites that have trees coming back.
Ending with a little hope. David Schechter, thank you. And the Forest Service estimates more than 4 million acres are in need of reforestation, largely caused by wildfires. So what are some solutions? Well, tomorrow we see how data is being used to locate wildfires faster and predict their movements to stop them sooner. But first, some of the moments that matter most in your community and your neighborhood. Turning now to an out-of-this-world milestone. 1 year ago today, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope sent the first images floating 930,000 miles from Earth. And just in time for the occasion, NASA released this swirling, colorful close-up showing a star-forming region about 390 light-years away. That's the closest star-forming region to Earth. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson says every new image Webb sends back is a new discovery.
What you're seeing is a star nursery. It's a swirl of gas and dust, and it produces stars, and it'll spit these stars out along those edges where the orange turns bright.
I find this so fascinating. In its first year of operation, the telescope has looked deeper into space and further back in time than ever before. NASA says the James Webb has enough fuel to operate for at least 20 years. Speaking of fuel, a family game night could help fuel the fun for kids learning math. According to a new study in the journal Early Years, board games can help young kids grow stronger at math abilities. In more than 30% of the games, kids saw a significant improvement in math ability compared with those who did not play. Okay, next on now, saving sensitive skin during hot summer months, how clothes can impact skin irritation and what you can do to prevent it. Plus,
none of the devices are made for children or designed for the pediatric body size.
A tiny device making big dreams come true while potentially saving lives for years to come. We take a look next. Over to your health now, and a family in Pennsylvania relieved to have their baby back home after he received the smallest pacemaker in the world. Ken Molestina shows us how doctors used an innovative approach to save the little boy.
Cameron Knowles is happy to be home. It's been a long road for the almost 8-month-old and his family.
For a while, we didn't know if he would make it.
Cameron was born with breathing and feeding issues, and he has heart block, which interferes with the electrical signals controlling heartbeats. To live, he needs a pacemaker.
None of the devices are made for children or designed for the pediatric body size.
Dr. Molly Shaw at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia improvised with what's become the world's smallest pacemaker.
It sends an electrical impulse to the heart. Cameron is one of maybe 10 kids in the whole world to get this kind of pacemaker.
This is the device that usually is implanted inside of an adult heart, reconfigured for Cameron to be placed outside his heart. It's a lot smaller than a conventional pacemaker, allowing for a less invasive surgery and quicker recovery.
The fact that it's the smallest in the world is just amazing.
Cameron's mom, Shakira Presley, says the decision to try something so new was not easy.
Just these decisions that you're forced to make as a parent to just make sure that he's well. It's difficult. I'm just so thankful for like that it was an option for us.
A tiny device making big dreams come true for their family. I'm Ken Molestina, Now News.
Ken, thank you. And as summer heats up, it may seem harder to pick out a comfortable outfit. People with skin conditions like eczema or psoriasis, and even people without skin irritation, can develop issues during high temperatures.